It was a Saturday morning like any other, warm coffee in hand, sun peeking through the garage window, and her car parked half in, half out like always. Erin had asked me to clean it out while she was at yoga, something I'd done more times than I could count. Vacuum the floors, wipe the dash, toss whatever junk food wrappers or receipts had accumulated in the back seat. It wasn't unusual. At least, it didn't seem unusual. I was halfway through the back seat, reaching beneath the passenger chair, when my hand brushed against something paper-thin. I tugged it free, expecting a crumpled napkin or some forgotten bill. But it wasn't that. It was an envelope, cream-colored, thick, tucked so far between the seat cushions that it had to have been placed there with intention. No stamp, no address. Just the word, always, written across the front in black ink. I turned it over. No return name. But when I pulled the letter out, I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was my brother's. I sat back, knees up, letter in my lap, and stared at it like it might catch fire in my hands. I hadn't seen his handwriting since my birthday card last year. The same crooked slant, the looped G in his name, the way he dotted his I just a little too high. I read it twice. The words are burned into me now. You looked so beautiful yesterday. I wanted to reach for your hand across the table, but he was right there. Sometimes I forget this isn't ours. I hate the pretending. I hate the wait. But I love you. Always. He signed it with a name he didn't use with me. Love, C. Chris. My older brother. My best man. My blood. I sat in the driver's seat, letter still shaking in my hand, as the car filled with a silence so loud it almost screamed. The woman I'd married 5 years ago had a secret. And the man she shared it with, shared my last name. I didn't move for a long time. Just sat there with that damn letter in my hands, the words crawling through my chest like poison I hadn't swallowed but was still somehow choking on. The silence around me had weight, heavy and humid, like it knew something I didn't. This wasn't just betrayal. It was layered. It was calculated. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a coworker. It was Chris. My older brother. The one who taught me how to throw a curveball. The one who drove 5 hours to help me fix a leaky sink. The man who stood beside me on my wedding day and said I was marrying up. The one I would have taken a bullet for without thinking. I looked down at the letter again. Those words, he was right there. I hate the pretending. I love you. Always. They read like something from a novel. A desperate confession. The kind of thing that doesn't just happen. No. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was an affair. Planned. Protected. Hidden. And it had been happening right under my nose. I folded the letter back into the envelope like it was fragile, though my fingers itched to tear it apart. I wanted to crumple it, burn it, throw it into the trash. But I didn't, because I needed proof. Not for her. Not for him. For me. To make sure I never second-guessed what I already knew to be true. By the time she got home from yoga, the car was spotless. Vacuumed. Washed. Dash wiped down with the same lemon-scented cloths she liked. The letter, gone from the seat, locked in my desk drawer under a stack of unopened bills. She came in through the garage like she always did, smiling, cheeks flushed, phone in hand. She kissed me on the cheek, thanked me for cleaning the car, then asked if I wanted to grab brunch. I said sure. And that made me sick, because she didn't know I knew. And somehow, I had to pretend I didn't. So I watched her pour orange juice. Watched her scroll through Instagram. Watched her laugh at something meaningless while the words, I love you, always echoed in my mind like a curse. The worst part, I started noticing things that had always been there. The way she'd light up when Chris was around. The way her laugh changed, less guarded, more playful. The times she'd offer to stay back from family events, saying she had headaches or deadlines, while Chris would always offer to swing by and check in. I had ignored the details. Trusted too hard. Looked away when I should have been looking closer. That afternoon, I called my mom. Not to tell her. Just to talk. To hear something familiar. Chris came by last night, she said without prompting. Brought me that lemon pie I like. Such a sweetheart. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Yeah, I said. He's always thoughtful. After we hung up, I stared at the phone like it might explain something. I needed to know how deep this went. So I did something I never thought I would. I checked her phone while she showered. She was careless. Trusted me the same way I'd trusted her. No passcode. No locked folders. And there they were. Messages. Not many. They were smart. Kept most of it vague. But not vague enough. Chris, I couldn't stop thinking about you all day. Erin, you're in my head. Always. Even when he's home. That last line hit harder than the letter. Even when he's home. That meant I was just background noise. Just a couch. A clock on the wall. A familiar routine she could fall into when her lover wasn't available. I put the phone down. Didn't say a word when she walked out in a towel, hair damp, asking if I wanted to watch a movie. I said yes. And that made me sick again. Because I was starting to understand what they'd been doing. They hadn't just taken love. They'd taken reality. And rewrote it right in front of me. The next morning, I woke up before her. I didn't sleep much anyway. My mind had been pacing all night, wearing a groove through memories I thought were safe. Now every laugh, every touch, every "I love you" replayed in my head like a broken record with something sinister layered underneath. I made coffee like I always did. 2 mugs. Hers with almond milk, mine black. She came into the kitchen wearing my old college hoodie, yawning like it was just another Sunday. She kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. But inside, something recoiled. She asked what we should do with the day. I said we could go visit my brother. She paused, just for a breath. Just enough for me to see the calculation flash behind her eyes. "That's unexpected," she said lightly. "You guys haven't hung out in a while." I shrugged. Thought it might be good to catch up. She hesitated. "Sure. Yeah, okay." I finished my coffee in silence. We drove together. I didn't say much. Neither did she. Her fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the window, and every now and then, she'd glance at me like she wanted to ask something, but didn't. Chris lived about 20 minutes away. Suburbs. Quiet street. The kind of place where nothing ever happens, until something does. When we pulled up, I saw his car in the driveway. I knocked. He answered in gym shorts and a t-shirt, like he'd just rolled out of bed. His eyes flicked to Aaron, then to me. He didn't expect the two of us. That much was clear. "Hey, man," he said, masking surprise with a wide grin. "What brings you here?" "Just figured it was time for a visit," I replied. "We've all been so busy." His smile faltered, just a hair. He stepped aside. "Yeah, of course. Come in." We walked into the living room. The same place we'd watched football, had beers, laughed about stupid things. Everything looked the same. Only now it felt rotten. Aaron sat on the edge of the couch. I stood. Chris poured coffee. Offered it like nothing had changed. I took it, thanked him. He looked calm. Too calm. Like a man who believed the lie had settled, untouchable. But I had the letter in my coat pocket. Not to show it. Just to remind myself it was real. I made small talk. Asked about work. His gym routine. How things were going. He answered easily, flashing his perfect teeth, throwing in a few jokes. Aaron barely spoke. She knew what I was doing. So did he. But neither one had the nerve to call it out. Until I did. I stood, pulled the envelope from my coat, and placed it on the coffee table. Right between his untouched mug and her trembling hand. Neither of them moved. "You forgot this," I said to him. Silence. Then Chris leaned forward slowly, jaw tightening. "Where'd you find that?" "In her car. Where you left it." His mouth opened, closed. No excuse. No lie. Just air. Aaron let out a slow breath, like she'd been holding it in for days. "David," she began. "No," I cut her off. "Not yet." I looked at my brother. "I asked you to be my best man because I thought you were one." That landed hard. He looked down, hands gripping his knees. "I didn't plan," he started. "I don't care what you planned," I snapped. "You had a choice. She had a choice. You made the same one, without me." Aaron stood then. "We never meant to hurt you." I looked at her, calm now. "But you did." The words weren't loud, just final. They didn't respond. Because what do you say when you're caught red-handed with the knife, and the blood's still warm? I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I just turned toward the door. But before I walked out, I looked over my shoulder and said the one thing I knew would stick. "You can have each other now. But you'll never have my respect. And that's the part you'll miss the most." Then I left. And this time, I didn't look back. I drove with the windows down, even though the air had that early spring bite to it. I needed something real to hit my skin, something that reminded me I was still alive, still breathing, still in control of something. The silence in the car felt different now. Not heavy, not numb, just honest. There were no tears. I didn't scream. I just let the road roll under me, mile after mile, until I ended up parked in front of an old gas station I used to stop at on the way to high school. I hadn't been there in years, but something about it felt grounded. Safe, even. I sat there a while. Let the engine idle. Let the heat blow weakly from the vents. Let everything catch up. I wasn't just betrayed by my wife. I was betrayed by my brother. And somehow, that part still cut deeper. Because you can lose a marriage, and people will tell you love's complicated, people change, people grow apart. But when your blood lies to your face, smiles at your wedding, holds your kid cousin on his knee during family reunions while slipping love notes to your wife behind your back, there's no poetic excuse for that. That's just rotten. Eventually, I killed the engine and went inside. The place hadn't changed. Faded linoleum. Old vending machine that probably didn't work anymore. The guy behind the counter looked about 80, or a flannel thicker than necessary. "You alright?" he asked as I passed. "Yeah," I said automatically. "Just, needed to be somewhere that doesn't lie." He didn't press. Bought a pack of gum and left. I sat on the curb for a while, chewing like it might help me grind through what the hell I was feeling. Then, out of instinct more than intention, I pulled out my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just a stillness I hadn't earned, but I was starting to crave. I opened my notes app and wrote something down, the kind of thought you catch mid-fall. Trust isn't broken by the act, it's broken by the ease of the lie. And you both lied so easily. I forgot how much it cost me, just to believe in you. I hit save, not for them, for me. Because this wasn't about getting even, it was about staying whole. I knew the calls would come soon, the apologies, the explanations, the carefully curated regret dressed in, "we didn't mean for it to happen." Maybe they'd even try the, "we fell in love accidentally" angle. Like love some rogue wave you don't see coming. But I wasn't standing on their beach anymore. I was building something inland, dry, grounded, untouchable. Later that night, I crashed at Nate's. He opened the door, took one look at me, and handed me a beer without a word. We sat on his porch, the air sharp enough to bite but not enough to send us inside. "Told you," he finally said. "You don't let family cut you deeper than strangers." "Too late for that," I muttered. "Not too late to stitch it up." He didn't ask what happened, didn't need to. I think he knew the second I didn't say Chris's name. "You gonna tell your parents?" he asked eventually. I nodded. "Yeah, I have to. I'm not covering for them." "Good," he said. "Because betrayal might be personal, but silence? That's generational." I didn't write that night, didn't even open my journal. I just slept, and in the still dark of Nate's spare room, for the first time in weeks, I didn't dream about her. I didn't see his face. I saw mine, clear, steady, and no longer in the shadow of someone else's mess. The next morning, I made the call. I sat on the edge of Nate's couch, staring out the window as the sun dragged itself up over the rooftops. Coffee in hand, voice tight, stomach doing flips, I dialed my parents' number. My mom answered first, chipper like always. "Hey, sweetheart, how are you? Aaron told me you two were maybe planning a trip for summer." I cut her off. "Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out without interrupting." That stopped her. The line went quiet. Then, "Okay." I took a breath. "Aaron and Chris have been having an affair." I found a letter in her car. I confronted them both. Nothing. Just air. I could hear her breathing, but it was shallow. Like she'd been sucker punched and couldn't find the words. "What?" she whispered finally. "It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't one night. It's been going on for a while. And I'm not sweeping it under the rug. I'm not pretending it's complicated. It's betrayal. Period." She stammered. "Are you sure?" "Maybe. Are you sure it wasn't just?" "I read the letter," I said. "I saw the messages. He signed it. He called her beautiful. Said he hated pretending." Now her voice broke. "Oh, David." I hated that I still felt the need to comfort her. But I didn't. "Not this time. I'm telling Dad too," I added. I'll let you," she said. "But I think you should say it." So I did. I waited for Dad to come to the phone, and when he did, I told him the same thing. No theatrics. No anger. Just facts. He didn't react right away. Just a long pause, then the words I didn't expect. "Come over." "What?" "I don't want to talk about this on the phone," he said. "Come over. Tonight." I agreed. I didn't know what was waiting for me there, but I wasn't afraid. That night, I drove to the house I'd grown up in. The one where Chris and I used to wrestle on the carpet, argue over the remote, sneak beers from the fridge when Mom wasn't looking. The driveway was full. My dad's truck, my mom's SUV, and his car. Chris was there. I parked, killed the engine, and sat with my fists tight against the wheel for a full minute. Then I got out. My mom opened the door before I even knocked. Her eyes were red, puffy. No makeup. The smell of lasagna in the air, a peace offering, maybe. Or just the instinct to feed people when things fall apart. "He's in the den," she said softly. We haven't said much. He's just waiting. I nodded, walked through the house. Everything looked the same, but it felt different, like the walls had absorbed the betrayal too. Chris sat on the leather armchair, same one he always claimed on game nights. He stood when I entered, eyes red but dry, no tears. David, he started. Don't, I said. Not yet. Dad sat across the room, arms crossed, jaw clenched. You have one shot, I told Chris. One chance to say what you need to say before I decide if we're ever in the same room again. He swallowed, looked down, then up. I'm sorry, he said. I don't have an excuse. I messed up. I crossed a line I can't uncross. You didn't just cross a line, I said. You built a second life on the other side of it. I didn't plan it. It just happened. That's what cowards say. He nodded, slowly. Didn't fight it. And for a second, that hurt more. Because if he'd tried to lie, tried to minimize it, I could have dismissed him completely. But this was just truth. Brutal. Useless. Real. Dad finally spoke. You're not welcome in this house for a while. Chris looked up, shocked. I raised 2 sons, Dad continued. One stood like a man. The other took what wasn't his. My mom cried then. Soft, broken sobs into her sleeve. Chris turned to me. I know I can't fix it, but. There's no but, I said. You don't get to patch betrayal with guilt. You just carry it. And then I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't wait for his voice. The door closed behind me. And with it, the last piece of whatever bond we once had. It's strange what you feel when the truth finally lands. Not relief, not rage. Just, wait. Like your body knows it needs to hold something heavier now, something it never asked for but can't put down. After that night at my parents' house, I didn't go home. I drove until the roads blurred into one long stretch of gray. Ended up at a motel off Route 19, neon sign buzzing, half the parking lot empty. I paid cash, took the key without making eye contact, and walked into a room that smelled like bleach and second chances. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the blank TV screen. My reflection looked tired, like I hadn't blinked in days. My phone buzzed once. Aaron. I didn't open it. Then it buzzed again. Aaron, please. I just want to talk. Third message. Aaron, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to stop it. I stared at the screen, the way a soldier might look at a ticking mine, knowing it won't explode now, but remembering how it once could have taken everything. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notebook. Same one that had carried me through the unraveling. And I wrote. They'll say they didn't plan it, but betrayal doesn't need planning. It needs permission. And you gave it. Every time you looked at him like I wasn't real. The next morning, I got up early, drove back into town and went straight to the gym. Not because I needed to work out, but because I needed to feel control again, even if it was just over my own pulse. I ran for 40 minutes, heart pounding, lungs burning, sweat dripping down my spine like truth trying to escape. When I finished, I sat on the edge of the bench, towel over my shoulders, breathing hard. That's when Nate showed up. He didn't say anything, just sat next to me, sipping water. After a while, he asked, "You good?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm not unraveling either." That's a start. We didn't talk about Chris. Or Aaron. Or the fact that I hadn't been back to the apartment since the confrontation. Instead, he said something simple. "You staying at that motel?" "Yeah. You can crash with me." "I don't want to." "You're not a guest. You're a brother. You've earned your space." That hit harder than it should have. Later that afternoon, I picked up the last of my things from the apartment. Aaron wasn't there. I let myself in, keys still in my hand, and walked through what used to be ours. Her shoes still lined the entryway. Her sweater was draped over the couch. And yet it already felt like a museum of a life that never quite existed. I didn't linger. Just packed the rest of my books, my clothes, the few framed photos that hadn't yet made it into boxes. I left one on the kitchen counter, our wedding picture, face down. Let her decide if she wanted to remember it. I dropped the keys in a bowl by the door. Didn't write a note. Didn't slam anything. Didn't look back. That night at Nate's, I sat on the balcony, journal open, the city stretched out in front of me like a question. And I wrote. They think silence is forgiveness. But silence is space. And when you give a man space, he doesn't come back broken. He comes back rebuilt. I looked up, took a breath, and realized, I wasn't just healing. I was changing. And no one, not her, not him, not even the version of me that once believed in both, could stop what came next. The city felt different after that. Not louder, not busier, just clearer. Like everything that used to distract me had fallen silent, and all I could hear now was my own breath, my own thoughts, the steady beat of a man who wasn't asking permission to move on anymore. I started showing up differently. At work, I stopped taking on extra hours just to avoid home. I didn't dodge questions or fake smiles. I got my job done, went home, and started figuring out what the hell home even meant now. At night, I'd sit on Nate's balcony with a cup of coffee, or sometimes a beer, and write. The city stretched out below me, and in that sky, with its 1,000 blinking windows, I stopped feeling like the only one trying to piece himself back together. One night, Claire called. Yeah, Claire, the woman from the bookstore. We hadn't spoken in weeks, not really. Just a few texts, some casual small talk when I stopped in. But she must have sensed something in the air. You okay? She asked. Better than I should be, I said. She paused. That's how you know you're finally telling yourself the truth. We didn't talk long. Didn't need to. It wasn't about filling space. It was just being seen. After I hung up, I pulled out the journal again. When you take your life back, it doesn't roar. It doesn't kick down the door. It walks in quietly, sits on your couch, and says, I've been waiting for you. The next morning, Erin showed up. No warning, no call, just a knock on Nate's door. I opened it, not surprised to see her. She looked exhausted, like the weight of what she'd done was finally settling into her bones. I know I shouldn't be here, she said. You're right, I replied. I need to say something. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. She didn't deserve to be in the space I was healing in. She stood there, arms crossed over her chest, jacket zipped up too tight. I know what I did can't be undone. And I know I lost your trust forever. I didn't respond. She went on, voice cracking. I didn't expect you to be so calm. You didn't expect me to know myself, I said. That hit her hard. She nodded slowly, tears starting to show. I was weak. No, I corrected. You were selfish. Don't confuse the two. She looked down. I didn't come to ask for forgiveness. Good, I said. Because I didn't bring any. I came to say thank you. That made me pause. For what? For not destroying me. For not going nuclear. For not turning our family against me. I stared at her. Hard. I didn't do those things because I'm not you. Not because you didn't deserve it. She wiped her face, nodded again. Then she did something I wasn't expecting. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. This is yours, she said. You gave it to me on our 3rd anniversary. I recognized it immediately. The bracelet. The one I had custom-made with the coordinates of the cabin where we spent our first trip away together. The one she swore she'd never take off. I took the box. Didn't open it. She stepped back. I hope you find someone who sees you the way I should have. I already do, I said. Me. She didn't speak after that. She just turned and walked down the steps. And I stood there for a long time, the box in my hand, the cool air biting my skin, the clarity in my chest unshakable. That night, I opened the box, held the bracelet, then walked outside, stood at the edge of the sidewalk, and dropped it into the storm drain. Because some things don't belong in drawers. Some things belong where they can't be found again. In the journal, I wrote, you don't need to burn everything, just the pieces they left behind, hoping you'd keep holding. And when I looked out at the city again, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt released. The next few weeks passed like quiet chapters. Nothing explosive, no more surprises. Just slow mornings, honest days, and nights that didn't require me to brace for betrayal. I kept working, kept writing, kept breathing. I even started walking more. Not because I had to, but because it gave me space to think, clear air that didn't carry her scent or his shadow. Nate noticed the difference. One night we were sitting out on the balcony, usual drinks in hand, and he said, you're not flinching anymore. I looked at him, brow raised. I was flinching. Every time the doorbell rang. Every time your phone buzzed. Even when someone mentioned her name on TV. You'd stiffen like your whole body was bracing for a hit. I nodded. I guess I just stopped waiting for impact. Good, he said. Because that's not living. That's flinching through your own damn life. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. No dreams. No ghosts. Just breath and stillness. And in the morning, I found myself back at the bookstore. Claire was there, as always. Sweater sleeves pushed up, glasses sliding down her nose, unpacking a box of second-hand hardcovers like she was handling treasure. She looked up as I walked in. Well, she said, smiling, you've officially outlasted the clearance table. I chuckled. I'll take that as progress. She leaned on the counter. You look different, lighter, cleaner, like your story isn't being written by someone else anymore. I took a slow breath, looked around the shop. You ever feel like you were sleepwalking through a life that didn't fit? Claire nodded. All the time. It's why I live in pages now. They're safer than people. Not all people, I said without thinking. She tilted her head. No, not all. I left with a new book, something about rebuilding. I didn't need it, but it felt right to hold a story someone else finished. Proof that things can end and still be worth reading. Later that night, Erin called again. I let it ring. Then she texted. Erin, I'm moving. Thought you should know. Chris and I are done. I stared at the screen. For once, no reaction came. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Not even relief. Just, nothing. And that was the clearest sign I'd healed more than I realized. I put the phone down. Didn't reply. Because her being done with him didn't mean a thing to me anymore. I was done long before that. The next morning, I visited my parents. My mom opened the door and hugged me longer than usual. Dad gave me a nod like he didn't know how to say what he wanted, but meant it anyway. Chris hadn't spoken to either of them in 2 weeks. They didn't ask me to reach out. Didn't ask me to forgive. Instead, my mom handed me a box. He left some things in the garage, she said. Said to give you this. I didn't open it until I got back to Nate's. Inside, a photograph. Me and Chris. Young, maybe 9 and 12. Covered in mud, arms around each other after some backyard game that turned into a war. Both smiling like the world couldn't touch us. On the back, scribbled in faded pen. Before we forgot what brotherhood meant. That night, I didn't write in the journal. I just sat with that photo. Not to mourn. To remember who I was before the lie. Before the letter. Before love twisted into something unrecognizable. And when I finally put it down, I knew one thing without doubt. That kid in the picture. He'd be proud of the man holding the frame. Because he didn't stay broken. He stood. He walked forward. And he never begged someone to choose him again. Spring settled in like a slow exhale. Warm sun after cold weeks, trees budding along the sidewalk, the city trading gray for green. Most people think healing feels like lightning, like one big moment of clarity. But truth is, healing is more like this, walking past places that used to hurt and realizing you don't even blink anymore. That's how I knew I was getting better. I walked past our old apartment complex one afternoon on my way back from lunch. No reason to detour, just muscle memory from years of routine. I stopped across the street, looked up at the second-floor window we used to call ours, and waited for the ache. It didn't come. I saw a different car in the lot. Someone else had moved in. Someone else was living a story in a space I once called home. But it wasn't mine anymore. That space had walls full of words I no longer answered to. Back at Nate's that evening, I finally pulled out a box I'd left untouched since I moved in. Inside were the last few remnants, things I didn't have the heart to throw out before. Not because I wanted them, but because they felt too final to face. I pulled out old cards, receipts from anniversary dinners, a menu she'd doodled on during our trip to Vermont. Then I found the original copy of the letter. Not the one from her glove compartment. The one from Chris. The one I kept. I'd meant to burn it. I didn't. Not because it held meaning, but because it was proof I hadn't imagined it. I read it one last time. You looked so beautiful yesterday. I hate the pretending. I love you. Always. It didn't sting anymore. It read like a stranger's fiction. So I folded it, walked it outside, and tossed it into the fire pit behind the building. Watched it curl, blacken, disappear into ash. Nate came out halfway through. He didn't ask what it was. He just handed me a beer and sat down beside me. Feels like something ended, he said. Because it did. We sat there in silence until the last of the flames died out. Then I turned to him and asked something I hadn't dared ask myself until now. Do you think I'll love again? He didn't look surprised. He just took a sip of his drink and said, only if you stop measuring love by what didn't last. That one stuck. Because I realized I'd been looking at love through a shattered lens, trying to rebuild from pieces someone else had broken, hoping I could shape it into something whole again. But love, it doesn't live in damage. It lives in presence. The next morning, I went back to the bookstore. Claire was rearranging the new fiction shelf. She looked up and smiled. Miss me? I asked. Like an overdue chapter, she said. I handed her a coffee. She handed me a wrapped package. Small, square. What's this? Just something I think you're ready for. I unwrapped it. It was a blank journal. Same leather-bound style, but on the inside front cover, she had written something. To the man who walked through the fire and didn't come out angry, just awake. I looked up, unsure of what to say. "You're not who you were," she said quietly. "That's the whole point." I nodded. Then I turned the page. And wrote the first line of a life no longer tied to betrayal. I am not what they did. I am what I chose next. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to write without looking back. Some endings don't need applause. They just need peace. It had been 3 months since the letter. 3 months since Aaron's lies and Chris's name stopped living in the center of my chest. I hadn't seen either of them since that last doorstep moment, her eyes hollow, his jaw clenched with shame he never had the guts to carry fully. They were gone from my world, not with fanfare, but with finality. I moved into my own place last week. Small apartment, 2nd floor, balcony overlooking nothing special. But it was mine. Every piece of furniture inside had been chosen by me, for me. No shared bed, no matching mugs, no pretend smiles over burnt toast and empty conversations. Just presence. Real, grounded, quiet presence. I had my routines now. Morning walks. Gym at 6. Coffee from that small corner spot Claire introduced me to. Evenings on the balcony, where I'd sit with the new journal she gave me and fill it without trying to sound wise. I didn't write for closure anymore. I wrote for clarity. The other night, I wrote, "You can't force someone to stay loyal, but you can choose to stop holding space. For people who mistook your heart, for their hiding place." It wasn't angry, just true. Claire and I had been seeing more of each other. Not dating, not yet. Just sharing space. A walk through the park. A book swap. Conversations that didn't require masks or mirrors. She didn't ask for the story of what happened. She waited until I offered it. And when I did, she didn't flinch. She didn't pity. She just nodded and said, "That kind of pain doesn't get to define you unless you invite it to stay. That's the kind of person you keep around. The kind who doesn't try to fix you, just lets you rebuild in front of them." One day, I think I'll fall in love again. Not out of need. Not out of loneliness, but out of wholeness. Because now I know the difference. I don't want someone to complete me. I want someone who meets me, fully, honestly, undistracted. I don't know where Chris is. I haven't asked. I heard he moved jobs. That his apartment lease ended early. Our parents still don't bring him up when I'm around. And I don't ask. Because whatever version of a brother I lost, it happened long before that letter. And I've made peace with the fact that blood doesn't always mean family. Sometimes, family is the friend who lets you sleep on their couch for a month and never asks for rent. Sometimes, it's a woman in a bookstore who hands you a journal and says, "Start here." And sometimes, family is just you, choosing yourself over the people who thought you'd break. Today, I stood in front of the mirror and didn't see a man trying to be okay. I saw a man who is not perfect, not healed all the way, but whole enough to never accept less again. And as I looked into my own eyes, I said something I'd never said before, not to Aaron, not to Chris, not even to myself during the worst of it. I said, "You did good, not because I got revenge, but because I got free." And freedom, it doesn't roar, it whispers. "You survived, now go live like it."